Okay, shalom everyone. It is the 10th of September. Hard to believe the summer is almost over. Um, we're also only about 3 weeks away from Rosh Hashanah, which is the New Year, the Jewish New Year. People already talking about preparations for the New Year. So it's like, the seasons come and go. And I went swimming just now and enjoying the last few days before our swimming pool closes. I was extremely surprised that Rachel said, "I'm coming with you." So finally, she came to the pool, and I saw her bouncing around in the water. And it's been decades I've been trying to get her to go swimming. And then the swim teacher came, who teaches the little kids, and he said, "For heaven's sakes, I taught a lady who was 95 to swim." So I said to my wife, "Well, what about you? You only need 2 or 3 classes. You'll be swimming like a champion." So I hope I don't want to say pray for Rachel, but she's fine. But I really, really want her to learn how to swim. But anyway, silly little things for the summer. I have a number of very important things to say this time. The first thing I wanted to say, and it's a very, very negative thing. Of course, tonight you have the debate between Harris and Trump, and it'll be prime time while you guys are watching it, but I'll be snoring away, and then at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. when I'm up, I'll watch it on the news, because I know who's going to win. It's not a problem of who's going to win. I'm really, really praying for America. I'm praying that the Jewish people in America make the right decision. I have been receiving different statistics that make it almost 50-50. The Jewish vote 50-50 Trump-Harris. But I read something today that it's still 75% Harris, which is completely crazy. They said Israel is like number 7 on the list of important items. But even if it's not such an important thing for American Jews, I think the economy is. I think the woke agenda, the progressive agenda, these things are so dangerous. I wonder where the Jewish common sense is. And you all know that I had a luncheon 2 years ago with a neo-Nazi. I didn't know he was a neo-Nazi. I knew he was just a conservative. And he said to me, Jews vote Bolshevik. They vote the Democratic Party. Therefore, we're going to kill all the Jews in America. And that's something crazy. It scares me because, as you all know, I've spoken about this threat from 20, 30 million Muslims that are in America. And now there are 30 million militia people. Of course, most of them are good Christians and good Jews. But you always have that fringe. So if you have an Islamic fringe and you have a neo-Nazi fringe and you have a Black Lives Matter fringe, an Antifa fringe, there could be a civil war in America. This could be completely crazy. I mean, for Israel, the bottom line is that Jews have to go home. Jews have to come back to Israel. So I'm very concerned about the future of America, just as I know you all are concerned about the future of Israel. I have total faith that God is going to protect us and have us under his wings, no matter what happens. And I hope the same applies to America. Anyway, that was something that's really very much on my mind. I have some good news. Day before yesterday, I completed the second edition of my 4th book, the Israel's Bible Block Party. It's about 25% longer than the previous one. But I'm very happy that the book is finished. Now what I have to do is, if I don't have $20,000 just lying around, I have to go find a publisher who will publish the book. But then again, if you have a publisher, you have to split up all the royalties. I don't care. I'm just a little concerned that I'm 75 and I don't know if I should be investing tens of thousands of dollars into the book in English, tens of thousands of dollars into the book in Hebrew. for the elections, tens of thousands of dollars in Russian because the primary votes will come from the Russian speakers. So you can see that we're not talking about just one book in English. We're talking about books in different languages. And Israel is a crazy country because you have 5 languages. You have, Hebrew, English, Arabic, Russian, and Amharic. Amharic is the language of Ethiopia. And we have about 150,000 Ethiopian immigrants. They have to get the book too. So I'm going one by one. I do have a lady from the group in Hempstead, Texas. I won't mention her name, of course, but she made a contribution, and she said, this is for getting the book out in English. And then she said to me, don't go to a publisher. Bring the book here to the States. We'll publish it in Texas. So it might be, I'm not saying, being presumptuous, but it might be that we will have support from some good Christian people in Texas. And so at least the book in English will come out without being a burden on my finances. Because as you all know, I have no finances the last year and a half, virtually none, except for a few very sweet people. Who also they will go unmentioned so that they don't have 20 million people asking for donations. But the important thing is the book is done. I spoke about the October 7th attack by terrorists 11 months ago. I added also that we had an overnight war with Iran on April the 14th, which is, by the way, my wife's birthday, and that the U.S. military and the allies and Israel together basically eliminated the 320 or 350 rockets that were fired from Iran. Even Jordan became an ally of Israel in that sense and helped with the British and other militaries. So I'm very excited the book is finished. As you all know, my next book, according to my schedule, is about Turkey and the Battle of Lepanto, number 2. But now also I have this story that I think I told you about, the settlements 55 years ago, that I was very active with them. And so we are working now on the details for getting they want me to translate the book for free, 220-page book in Hebrew. And I mean, I can do it, but I have to, these people are broke. I mean, they were always broke. So if I'm really willing to do it for free, then the next stage is who's going to publish the book, and am I going to make anything, or will it be a total loss for me? But the importance of the book is the book talks about the activities of the partisan settlers, which is 55 years ago, and I was a part of that, and so I'm very proud. I mean, I thought I forgot about it, but this professor who wrote the book in Hebrew, I have to meet with him again. We have to nail down the agreement for me to translate the book. And how will it be distributed in the U.S.? Will it be distributed to a publisher? Will it be distributed personally by me? The book in Hebrew is being published by Bar Ilan University. And the professor who wrote the book wants me to meet with the leadership there in Bar Ilan University, which also might be a very important breakthrough for me, not monetarily, but it'll open doors for me. Nobody knows who I am here in Israel. The only people who really know who I am are the good people in America and other countries. So I'm hoping that maybe some new doors will open as a result of me translating the book about the partisan settlers in 68, 69, 70. Anyway, so just as I thought I was going to retire, so it seems like I'm not going to retire so fast. I have a lot of work ahead of me. And we're waiting here in Israel at any moment for the war to break out with Hezbollah in Lebanon. Israel is hammering away now in Syria because President Biden said don't regarding Lebanon and don't regarding Iran, but he never said anything about not attacking Syria. And Syria is the country that is providing all the assistance to Iran to take over parts of Syria and to supply Hezbollah with all its weaponries. So we have some very major, I don't know if you got it in the news in America, but we had some very major air attacks on Syria over the last few days. We are continuing to grind down the capabilities of Hezbollah in Lebanon. I think there are now about 200,000 Lebanese who have been displaced and have headed north. And the Shiites who are fleeing from the south, fleeing from Israel because of the Shiite Hezbollah, they're going to live with the Christians in the Christian areas of Lebanon, because the Christians and the Shiites are allies under Bashar al-Assad in Syria, and so they're allies in Lebanon also. An interesting point, and I don't know if I mentioned it last week, but I have to mention it now, and I am mentioning it at the very end of my book, that this is very interesting, a very interesting development. We have in the four countries, Israel, Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan, we have populations of people who are of the Druze faith, D-R-U-Z-E, the Druze faith. The Druze are descended from Jethro, so they are really cousins. Now the Druze have a very, very interesting history. I won't go into the full history. I will just say that the Druze in each country are loyal to the militaries in each country. So the Druze who live in Israel are totally loyal Israeli citizens. The Druze in Syria are totally loyal citizens of Syria. In other words, they're enemies of their own fellow brethren, but they are careful not to attack each other. They just serve in their militaries. The Druze in Lebanon used to be allies of the Shiites and the Christians, but something now is changing. And so I am pretty sure that none of you have heard this. So it's kind of breaking news for you all. There are also Druze in Jordan, and the Druze are military people. So there are Druze people in the Jordanian army. So somehow, you know, like off the record, the Druze are all buddy-buddy with each other. And something very interesting happened. About 10 years ago, the civil war broke out in Syria, and Bashar al-Assad, who was a Shiite, built up a coalition with Christians, Shiites, and Druze, and also Kurdish and Yazidis. And the important thing here is that the same type of alliance you see in Lebanon, where the Shiites, the Christians, and the Druze are allies. The Sunnis are very outnumbered in Lebanon, so they're very quiet. But the Sunnis, you have to remember, like the Sunnis in the Abraham covenant agreements with Israel, they're Sunnis. And there is this persistent war between the Sunnis and the Shiites. So there is a very big concentration of Druze people in the south of Syria, in an area called Jebel al-Druze, the mountain of the Druze. It's also, there's a city there called Suwaida. And if you look at if you fly and you look at the maps on the plane, you see Suwaida, South Syria. Suwaida is a city which was Druze. And what happened 10 years ago was that the ISIS people had the mountain of the Druze surrounded, and ISIS was very actively preparing to annihilate, genocide, 400,000 or 500,000, 700,000 Druze. And the Druze in the Israeli, in Israel, the Druze in the Israeli military came to Netanyahu, and they said to him, listen, we have to invade Syria. We have to invade the south of Syria, reach our religious compatriots, the Druze of Suwaida, of Mount Druze, And Israel has to invade the area in order to protect the Druze, otherwise they'll be annihilated. And you all know ISIS has no problem annihilating people. And the Druze in Israel said to Netanyahu, if you don't lead us in an army into Syria, well, at least let us go privately, give us weapons, and we Druze will privately cross the border, conquer the area, and join up with the Druze in south of Syria, in Suwaida. And Israel's borders expand eastward. So if you listen to the teachings about from the Nile to the Euphrates, this is the beginning of a teaching which I've been teaching in churches and in groups where I've been. But anyway, the point is that Netanyahu did not want to get involved in an invasion of south of Syria. And what did Netanyahu do? He went to Moscow. He went to Russia. And he convinced Putin. Now they're friends. I mean, at least they were friends. But at that time, they were very close friends. And Netanyahu convinced Russia, Putin, to send the Russian military in big force into Syria so that Bashar al-Assad, the Shiite, could defend the Druze in Suwaida. Because Bashar al-Assad said, we cannot defend you anymore. We're losing the civil war. So the importance of this deal was that Russia would do the dirty work, and Israel would be able to stay out of the war between the Druze and ISIS. Anyway, meanwhile, ISIS has been destroyed in Syria, at least mostly. Now there's another problem. And here comes the breaking news that I was telling you about. You know that Iran has been the backbone of Bashar al-Assad's power today. In other words, Bashar al-Assad, the Shiite, owes the Iranians who are Shiites. And as a result, they have been pouring Iranian troops into the south of Syria with the tacit consent of Bashar al-Assad. But the problem is that the Druze are very, very independent people. And the Druze don't like to be marched around or bossed around by the Iranians. Don't forget, the Druze are not Shiites. They're not Sunnis. They're another religion completely. So there was a broadcast in Arabic 2 nights ago. Rachel and I were watching. And they didn't say who the guy was, but some senior Druze personality in Suwaida, in Syria. And don't forget, the Druze in Syria are loyal to Syria. But what's the problem? Syria is now loyal to Iran. And they're working at counter purposes. And so the Druze commander there, or whoever he was, said to Israel, you, Israel, have to come in and save us from the Iranians. It's not ISIS anymore. Now it's the Iranians threatening them. And we're talking about 400,000 or 500,000, 700,000. I don't know exactly the number of the Druze. The Druze in Israel are also watching very carefully. Now, I don't know if you remember or if you knew, but about a month ago, Nasrallah of Hezbollah, which is Druze, which is Shiite, launched a missile which hit right in the middle of Majd al-Shams, which is formerly Syrian territory. It's now, as of 1967, Israeli territory. And one of the things we've been seeing is that the Druze of Majd al-Shams and the Golan Heights, who originally were anti-Israel, they were very proud to be Syrian citizens. But after Syria totally came apart in the civil war, now all of a sudden the Druze in Majd al-Shams and the Golan Heights are saying, hey, you know what? Maybe this is wrong. Maybe we should be Israeli citizens. And the Israeli government and the Israeli people, we love the Druze people in the Golan Heights. We love the Druze people in Majd al-Shams. And Nasrallah launched a missile, a rocket or whatever, which killed 12 children playing soccer in a soccer field there in Majd al-Shams. So now the Druze in Lebanon are angry with the Shiites. And again, I have to emphasize, the Shiites in the south of Lebanon are fleeing north. They're not going to the Druze. They're going to the Christians. So it seems like there's a very serious rupture in relations between the Druze of Lebanon, the Druze of Syria. And don't forget, Lebanon and Syria are really like one country. So there's a radical change strategically taking place in the populations there of the Druze. Druze in Syria, Druze in Lebanon, Druze in Israel. Is it a good thing for Israel? I would think that if the Druze are overcoming their loyalty to Syria and adopting a loyalty to Israel, it's a good thing. But the problem is, what do we do with the Druze population in Suwaida and Mountain of the Druze? Because there are 400,000, like I said, to 700,000. We don't know the exact numbers. But the Druze altogether throughout the world are like 2 million. So if there is a genocide of the Druze in south of Syria, Israel, now Russia's out. Russia is not getting involved. They paid their dues. The Russians paid their dues to protect the Druze, and now Israel will have to do it. So in the broadcast 2 days ago, the Syrian Druze commander in Suwaida said, the Iranians are coming in full force into the south of Syria, and if you Israelis do not help us and that do not come into south of Syria by invading the south of Syria. Every time I hear invading south of Syria, I think from the Nile to the Euphrates, which I think you all are aware of. Maybe God is making a change here. Maybe there's something going on. So I don't know what the decision is in the Israeli government. I'm not in the Israeli government, but the Iranians on a day-to-day basis are increasing their power in Suwaida in order to strengthen Bashar al-Assad. Bashar al-Assad really cannot do anything to stop the Iranians because he is beholden to the Iranians. So I think it needs watching. We have to see what happens. Will Israel get involved? And I personally, I mean, if you look at the map, and for those of you who have been in Israel, and you go to the Golan Heights, you see there are 3 cities in Syria, which are like one next to the other. You have in the Golan Heights, Quneitra, which we held until 73, and Kissinger made us give it back to the Syrians. After Quneitra, you have another city called Daraa, and Daraa, I think there's a very big Sunni population there. They're Sunnis. So the civil war is still going on between the Shiites and the Sunnis. Then after the Sunnis of Daraa, you have Suwaida. And Suwaida is Druze, but it's Druze mixed in with Shiites and now Iranians. And the Iranians are flexing their muscles against the Shiites, against the, excuse me, I'm getting confused. They're flexing their muscles against the Druze. I don't want to go into the history of 3,500 years ago with Jethro, but Jethro, who was the father-in-law of Moses, is a relative. The Druze are very, very devout and loyal soldiers in the Israeli army. They need us in Suwaida. I think probably this would add another weight to the balance as to whether we should attack Iran. And you know that Iran, Biden said don't. So we can't go into Iran. We can't go into Lebanon. But he never said Syria. So now CENTCOM commander Kurilla came to visit us in the last few days. I'm sure they were talking about that, because I'm sure that the U.S. military out in the Mediterranean there is not excited about Israel starting a war with Syria, even though we never spoke to anyone about Syria. But Syria now is popping up, and Iran is sending its troops all the way to the Golan, which is Israel. And we cannot sit by quietly while Iran is building up its forces in that area and threatening the Druze, who not only are our allies, but they are blood brothers. So I'm just saying, we're living in very interesting times. In my book about Return to Mecca, I talk a lot about Jethro. And for your information, Jethro was not a Jew. He was a Druze. He was the father of the Druze people. Jethro never, ever was criticized in the Torah or in the Bible about being anti-Semitic or anti-Israel. We love the Druze. You know, they're slightly different people. My only problem with them is that they like the Muslims, they follow the Muslim prayer, the times, and say that Jethro, the Druze believe that Ishmael was the chosen son. My books teach that Ishmael was the reject and that Isaac was the chosen son. So this is my only problem with the Druze, but otherwise they're fantastic people. There is no hatred against the Jews by the Druze. The Druze have some problems as far as their civil rights in Israel. I am in favor of giving them everything they ask for. They are not a big group of people, but they're a very important group of people. I believe they are the key to Syria. I believe they are the key to Lebanon. And we have to make sure that our alliance with the Druze in Israel is unharmed. And to do that, we have to be loyal to the Druze and help them with the Druze people in Suwaida so that they don't get annihilated. So I don't know if any of you heard about any of this in the news. This is breaking news here in Israel. Meanwhile, in Lebanon, there are many, many people who are fleeing north from the Shiite areas to the Christian areas. One of the ironic and strange things is that they have the Nasrallah and the Hezbollah have 150, 160, 170 rockets given to them or provided to them by the Iranians, and they have dug massive tunnels. It's a mountainous area. North Korea built tunnels for Hezbollah. A very big German tunneling company came in and dug them tunnels, presumably, you know, for sewers. Trucks go through these tunnels, and so the Germans did their job. They got paid and they left, you know. But the tunnels there are for storing rocket launchers. And these rocket launchers pop out, fire their missiles, go right back into the tunnels again. And this is perhaps the main strategic problem that Israel has now with Hezbollah in Lebanon. And I'll tell you something else. Where are these tunnels dug? Underneath Christian villages. In other words, the Christians are not able to say anything in protest. But if Israel comes in and blasts the hell out of them, it's the Christian villagers that will get annihilated. It's kind of like Hamas in Gaza do all their activities against Israel from civilian populations. And if Israel attacks, and the world says, oh, Israel is killing innocent civilians, because the innocent civilians are on top and the terrorists are in their tunnels underneath. So it's kind of similar to what we have with Lebanon, with the Nasrallah. At this stage, because Biden said don't, so we don't, as of yet, we have not invaded the south of Lebanon, but our troops are ready to attack at any time, if need be, to go all the way to Beirut. We've done it before. The Israeli Air Force is grinding down the Hezbollah wherever they can. We have a lot of intelligence sources in Lebanon. and the intelligence sources tell us exactly where to find the Hezbollah and Iranian commanders who are directing the fire, the missile fire at Israel. This is not easy for Hezbollah. It's not easy for us either, because we have 70,000 Israeli citizens who are displaced from their homes. And, we have been trying to negotiate something with Hezbollah. No deal. There has to be a war with Lebanon. And I think I mentioned it in past meetings. The war with Lebanon and Iran will take place when our laser systems are up. And we will have such a massive cover of laser fire. And don't forget, laser fire can take out any missile from any direction. It costs $40,000 a shot of electricity, $40,000. If we have to fire anti-missile missiles, it's $1 million a shot. So if they have 170,000 missiles and Iran has a few 100,000 missiles, Israel goes bankrupt. Israel runs out of anti-aircraft missiles. So we have to have the electricity up. We have to have the Nautilus systems. It goes by another name now, but it's the same thing. We have to have planes up in the air, which Obama mocked. Obama was mocking the idea of 747s with a refrigerator-sized weapon that shoots from above the clouds, the stratosphere, shoots laser beams at any missile coming in. But this is the only system that can wipe out tens of, or hundreds of thousands of incoming rockets coming from Lebanon, Syria, Iran, Yemen, from even Pakistan. Pakistan has said to the Iranians, "We will help you." So, and Egypt has rockets also. So we do not have a simple situation, but this answers the question, why are we not attacking until December, let's say. Now, of course, American elections are in November. I cannot say we will not attack before the elections, but according to the Israeli news reports, these Nautilus systems will only be up in December. So it's your guess is as good as mine as to when and where these attacks will take place. Changing the subject, I wanted to go to another subject, and I don't want to say I have to apologize, but in many of our meetings and many of my teachings in churches in the United States, I talk about the armaments flowing into Egypt, and that Egypt is not a peaceful partner. Egypt officially is at peace with Israel, but Egypt is preparing to attack Israel. And why would they want such weaponries? Egypt has no enemies. Libya to the west is not an enemy. Chad to the southwest is not an enemy. Sudan is not an enemy. Only Israel is the enemy. This is what I've been saying for years. But a new story now has popped up. Of course, as you know, I'm constantly monitoring the media. Rachel also. There's a country called Ethiopia. Ethiopia has built it's called the Renaissance Dam, and it's on the Blue Nile. And the Egyptians are preparing a mass military attack on Ethiopia. Ethiopia has signed a deal with a breakaway province of Somalia. It used to be called Somaliland. It was an Italian colony. And the Egyptians, why did they make a deal with Somaliland? So that they would have access to the sea. Ethiopia is the biggest African country which is landlocked. And so Somaliland, the neighbor, is now working out final details for building a port or allowing Ethiopians to use the port. So the Egyptians have transferred, I don't know the numbers, tremendous amounts of tanks and aircraft and infantry to Somalia in order to invade Somaliland, perhaps to invade Ethiopia in order to stop Ethiopia from diverting waters to the Renaissance Dam. Egypt wants that water. Egypt doesn't want to let Ethiopia have it. This is a classic example in history of countries fighting over access to water. So I have to apologize and to amend what I was saying, that Egypt has no enemies. Egypt does have an enemy. It's called Ethiopia. And by the way, Ethiopia has excellent relations with Israel. So the question then will be, if Egypt, or when Egypt attacks Somaliland and or attacks Ethiopia, how will Israel be involved? This is another breaking news. This is another developing story. If anybody has heard about this in the American media, you can unmute yourself and let me know. Hey, I know all about it. You know, some people are like, they know it. Praise God. But I think most people have not heard anything about this brewing explosion that will take place between Ethiopia and Somaliland on the one hand, as opposed to Somalia and Egypt. So, you know, hey, listen, the Middle East is not the Midwest. It's not a nice neighborhood. It's not an easy neighborhood. So I think these are two very, very important developments. I have one last thing that I wanted to talk about, which gives me great sadness. But I have to, I mean, it's part of the Israeli political reality. As you all know, there are people in Israel, Jewish people, who are leftists, socialists, anarchists, and they are doing everything they can to overthrow Netanyahu. And, you know, in politics, you always have one side trying to overthrow the other side. And so the failure of Israel to get back our hostages is blamed, of course, on whom? On Netanyahu. Netanyahu is the obstacle to Israel getting back its hostages. And this, I am sure you've heard about this in the American media, because the American media has become anti-Israel, or shall I say at least that they don't defend Netanyahu in any way. So here comes some more breaking news. There is a German magazine called Bild, B-I-L-D. If any of you know German, or if you're in the mood, you can look it up. I'm sure the article will pop up. The Israeli troops, a few months ago, were in a number of tunnels in Gaza. Some of the tunnels were tunnels in which Yahya Sinwar circulates. It's just when the Israeli military arrives, he's not there, he's gone. If you ask me personally, I think somebody is tipping off Sinwar that the Israelis are coming. So he disappears. I think someone from the Israeli generals who are not happy with Netanyahu. And the worst thing that could happen to the left in Israel, to the socialists, is that Netanyahu retrieve our 101 hostages. When the 6 hostages got brutally murdered a few days ago, Netanyahu was blamed. Netanyahu is stalling. Netanyahu has his own ambitions. He wants to stay in power. Horrible things. And there are massive demonstrations in Tel Aviv that Netanyahu is the reason that we are not getting our hostages. Netanyahu is the reason there's no ceasefire, and on and on and on. And Rachel and I literally get sick to our stomachs. We try not to watch the socialist TV stations. We watch only 14. 14 is the nationalist religious one. Anyway, the Israeli military was scouring the tunnels where Yahya Sinwar was. He was not there, but we found computers. We found information which had to be deciphered or decoded, and they found a document from the top level, maybe from Sinwar himself, that said that the reason there's no ceasefire, the reason there's no hostage exchange is because Yahya Sinwar does not want the exchange. Yahya Sinwar does not want the ceasefire, unless it's a ceasefire in which Israel is totally withdrawn from Gaza. So he is the one who's blocking the hostage return. And he will keep the hostages for years. Even if they die, he's going to keep them, because then he returns bodies. And so the question that is asked, how can it be that the Israeli generals, these left-wing generals who are opposed to Netanyahu, keep the information from the public, keep the information from Netanyahu, and say that Netanyahu is the reason for no ceasefire, Netanyahu is the reason for no hostage exchange or return, when it's very obvious and very clear from the article that appeared in Bild months ago. And the Israeli military knew about it. The Israeli military does not tell Netanyahu anything in order to make Netanyahu look bad. So something is very sick, something is very wrong in the Israeli military. And these people are following orders from Washington. And Washington is still adamant about a coup d'etat against Netanyahu. Now, the U.S. Navy, U.S. military, like I said in the past, the U.S. military marches in lockstep with Israel, but the U.S. military has to do what the civilian leaders are telling them to do, who happen to be Democrats. So, indeed, I'm very, very excited about the debate today or tonight. For us, it'll be 3 a.m. And I pray to God that Trump, I'm sure he'll win, but I know the media in America will still attack Trump. So I'm very excited. We're living in very difficult times. That pretty much, these are the 3 breaking news articles that I don't think I've given you such long Zoom meeting in the past. So I'm very glad that it's working this time. I'll be very careful also what I say about my son. I know Lori let my son have it. Anyway, so we're very excited that things are going okay. And all I can say is God save America, God save Israel. If there are any questions, we can go ahead and ask questions. I think you have a lot of material to chew on.
Avi, I was wondering, we talk about Israel's fighting a war on at least 7 fronts. I was wondering if you could go kind of one by one on each of those and tell us 2 things. Is it, for that particular one, is it the beginning, the middle, or the end? Or is it just ongoing forever for that particular one? And then number 2, if you think it will result in more territory controlled by Israel for each one of those fronts.
Good question. I have to tell you, if you remember, you're too young. But in 1960, there was a televised debate between Kennedy and Nixon, and everyone was mocking Nixon because when Kennedy asked him a question, Nixon said, "I'm glad you asked that question." And so people were making fun of Nixon that's a no, you don't do that because you're trying to buy time. But I'm glad you asked that question. So just to let you know. Now, today in the news in Israel, it came out that Yahya Sinwar said there will be no more Israel by the year 2027. In other words, Yahya Sinwar is a madman, kind of like Hitler, but he has these things planned out so that Israel will be worn down by attrition on these 7 fronts. The good news is, at least as far as we can see right now, we control the Philadelphia corridor on the Egyptian border, and the Gaza terrorists, Hamas, are being ground down continually. So that is 1 front less. I mean, we have our soldiers, we're fighting, so it's still a front, but it's not like if I looked at you, Lori, or anyone here, if I looked at anyone crooked manner, in the wrong manner, Hamas would immediately launch 200, 300, 400 rockets. Well, Hamas cannot do that anymore. Hamas theoretically can fire one rocket or two, and within 3 minutes, the Israeli Air Force bombs that whoever did it, the kingdom come. So number one, the first tentacle of the octopus has been chopped off, and that's Gaza. There are now a lot of debates in Israel. Prime Minister Sharon, former Prime Minister Sharon, Condoleezza Rice, a Republican, forced Israel to withdraw from Gaza and to uproot 10,000 Israeli settlers. Condoleezza Rice. You think Republicans are allies of Israel? Well, George W. was not an ally. And Condoleezza Rice really ramrodded the withdrawal down our throats. And an interesting point, I think most of you know this, the village, series of villages that were destroyed were Katif, K-A-T-I-F. And when Israel was forced to withdraw, there was a hurricane called Katrina, K-A-T. Now you tell me, what is the probability of Katif, K-A-T, and Katrina, K-A-T? One is the result of the other. So now there are thousands of Israelis who want to go back. And they're saying the whole decision to withdraw was wrong. And Sharon uprooted 4 Jewish settlements in Samaria. Why did he uproot it? To make an offer of peace. But the Arabs don't want peace. Where are our main troubles today? In Judea and Samaria, in North Samaria, which is Jenin, Shechem, Tulkarem, and of course the 4 settlements which no longer exist, because if you don't have settlements, you don't have security. So that's the second, I would say. And now the malady is spreading to Hebron and to other places. And I don't have to tell you, one of the reasons I don't travel to the States is because where we live is right in the middle of a whole block of Palestinian communities and settlements. Iran is smuggling weapons into these settlements. And I'm 75. I'm too old for the army. I'm too old for the civil defense group, the emergency squad. But I have a pistol and I have to use it. I use it. And if I have to die, so I die. But we could be overrun by thousands of terrorists, Nukba terrorists coming in from these Arab villages surrounding us. So I don't go to the States because I have to be here. So that's the second front. The situation in Judea and Samaria is getting hot. The terrorists are... The whole plan of Yahya Sinwar, of Hamas, was to get everybody involved, to get the 7 fronts all marching on Israel. So the first front has been pretty much taken out. We are now working on Judea and Samaria. We are, of course, under the orders of Washington. Don't attack Lebanon, don't attack Iran. In the end, we will have to attack them. I don't know if this will happen when the laser beam weaponry systems are up, or when Trump becomes reelected, God willing. So you have, of course, Gaza. You have Judea, Samaria. You have Lebanon. You have Iran. Right there you have 4. Syria. We're now attacking in Syria, as I mentioned earlier in the broadcast. That's 5. We have Iraq. Pro-Iranian terrorists from Iraq coming into Jordan and then crossing the border. Where we live in Kedar, Ma'ale Adumim, it's exactly a 10-minute drive from the Jordan River up to our house. 10-minute drive. I mean, you guys from Texas are probably laughing your heads off. No Texan can believe that such major enemies are 10 minutes away. There's concern that from Judea and Samaria, terrorists can cross over the Highway 6, the main highway heading north-south, and attack Israeli settlements, can attack Netanya, can attack Hadera, can attack Tel Aviv. And, the Israeli military is overstretched. And we're facing a war with the Arabs in Judea and Samaria. So right there, as I mentioned, Gaza, Judea, Samaria, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Iran, that's 6. And did I forget the Houthis? The Houthis, we blew up their ocean port of Hodeidah. They're promising revenge. One day they'll have a revenge there. They will try to have a revenge. So that's 7 fronts. Will the military operation continue for long? If you ask me, if we were not over a barrel because of President Biden and the Democrats, if we could take out Lebanon, we could do it in a few days. If we could take out Iran, we could do it in 1 day. If we blew up all the oil resources of Iran, there would be a revolution the next day because Iran has no money unless the U.S. gives them $100 billion again, because the U.S. is the one that's been paying all these enemies of Israel to attack Israel. My wife is not diplomatic. She says America, under the Democratic Party, is trying to destroy Israel. So anyway, we believe in God. For those who believe in God, Israel will never be destroyed. And what I'm thinking is when it's all said and done, when it's all over, we will go from the Nile to the Euphrates, not because we want it. We don't want it. We want to be left alone. But God has a plan. And I cannot give a deadline, but everything is in God's timing. Just as Egypt attacking Ethiopia is not something that we planned. It's something that has nothing to do with us. But if you look at the 2 Chronicles chapter 20, you see something very similar of 3 armies marching on Jerusalem, and God destroys them. It's not we who destroy them. It's God who destroys them. But our borders will grow. We cannot give Gaza back to anybody. Gaza will remain in our hands. When we take the south of Lebanon, that does not go back to anyone. Because we already gave it back once, and you see what happened there. Ehud Barak gave the south of Lebanon in 2000. Look what happened. Crazy. So, did I answer your question, my dear?
Yes, thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm going to ask a question. It may not make sense, but I'm going to ask it. Is Netanyahu aware of these generals that are coming against him?
Absolutely.
He is. Mm-hmm.
You know what? You asked a very short question. I'll give you a long answer. We had a prime minister by the name of Ehud Barak. And when he was born, people were saying the guy looks like, a mongoloid. Mongoloid, the Down syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
He looks retarded. And the guy's nuts. The guy's retarded. He keeps making stupid decisions. Yesterday, he was on TV, and he said, I have 3,000 people who are with me, and we are going to overthrow the government, and we're going to take over. 3,000 people. Now, 70% of the Jewish people support Netanyahu. 70% of 8 million is 5.6 million. So we have 5.6 million peacekeeping, peaceful people, peace-abiding people. 5.6 million. He has 3,000. Now, you tell me, is this guy normal? And Netanyahu doesn't know. But these 3,000 people control the army, control the judicial system, control the foreign ministry, control the banks, control the industry, because all these people were appointed by the leftists. So I believe that we are in danger of a civil war. We are in danger. Netanyahu is making every effort to avoid a civil war. He's making every effort, even though generals are against him, he does not fire them. He lets their contracts run out and then finds someone else to replace them. 2 years ago, certain Air Force pilots. And you have to remember, Air Force pilots get approved by the socialists. Air Force pilots said they were going to refuse to serve. That was 2 years ago. So my question, I mean, the Air Force pilots are serving, but there was like 10% of them who are not serving. My question is, there's a list of 300 people who signed the papers that they were not going to serve in the Army, in the Air Force. I want to know in the last 2 years how many of them died naturally. That some of these people were 80 years old. So 80 years old, they don't fly anymore, but you have a natural disappearance of people who, as the time goes by. And I think Netanyahu, what he's doing is he's trying to get more of the entire population involved in the military, in the court system, and they're fighting back. They don't want any of the blacks. Now, by the way, I'm a black. Did you see? Do I look black? Anyone who is Likud, anyone who's right wing is black, and these socialists are white. And so this is also a racial problem. My wife is black. I'm black. Anyone who is with the Likud, anyone who's right wing, anyone who does not go with the socialists is a black. We're called Tribe 2. And the socialists and communists are Tribe 1. So there has to be an accounting here in Israel. It's just Netanyahu says, number one, we have to finish the war. So to finish the war, he continues working with all these left-wing generals. And when they make a mistake, he overrides them. But he doesn't fire them. And because he's prime minister and because he has 64 out of 120 members of Knesset, he can do it. So he's dealing with these crazy generals with silk gloves. But that might end soon. Any more questions?
Thank you.
Okay, my dear. Anyone who wants to ask a question, just unmute yourself.
Hi, Avi, it's Angela.
Hi, Angela. Also, Neil Johnson just sent me, he'll be in touch. So I wish you and your beautiful wife and beautiful daughters a good week until we meet again, God willing. Yes, Angela.
Thank you. You were saying about the enemies on 7 fronts. How do you regard Russia then? Because I know that Minister Sergei Lavrov put out several statements over the last few days, which include claims that Israel is provoking Iran and suggesting that Hamas and Hezbollah cannot be defeated. Of course, all this was received positively in Iran. And we know that Iran has given, is it 200 or 300 ballistic missiles to Russia? Some location in the Caspian Sea he took possession of them, and Russia media, it's been reported in the Metro and the Times that there's a general in Russia that is calling for changes to the to Russia's policy on nuclear weapons, which they said was fluid in the past. But this is directly aimed at Britain, and they've threatened Britain with a nuclear attack. Within it, this was broadcast, I think, on 11 different channels in Russia, that they were talking about Putin needing to send a message to Britain. And, saying, oh, well, we can remove Britain I'm sure the British are enjoying their life there, but we can remove them and saying things like swim, swim, swim. The British, obviously, we're in Ireland. It's all the rhetoric inside Russia is escalating because they see Britain and Europe as a threat because our governments have been helping Ukraine and giving them weapons. So really, Russia is a player with Iran in provoking with these inflammatory comments, saying that Israel is provoking Iran, when actually Iran is behind all of this, and aided and abetted, of course, with money given from the USA.
Correct. My turn?
Yes, sorry.
I love when you ask questions because I learn a lot from your questions. That's very good. Okay, now
Yes.
listen. I don't want to oversimplify or generalize, but we have in Russia today about 500,000 Jewish people. Putin is very, very favorable to Jewish people in Russia. I don't know if you know the history, but he had when he was a little kid, he was very scrawny, starving basically. His parents, even though Putin's father was in the KGB, they had no food in the house. And Putin grew up with Jewish kids. And the Jewish mothers doted upon Putin. The Jewish mothers fed him. They took care of him. Just absolute outright love. Putin had a German language teacher, a Jewish woman. And when she moved to Israel, when Putin came to Israel to visit on one of his trips, he bought her an apartment. She was a poor immigrant. Putin paid for an apartment. That's a lot of money, for his German language teacher. As I said before, Netanyahu has a certain chemistry with Putin. Regarding sending the Russian military to Syria to save the Druze, I spoke about this. Israel's position, now I'm not an Israeli diplomat, but Israel's position is neutrality. We cannot choose between Russia and Ukraine for the simple reason that we have 500,000 Jews in Russia. We have 100,000 Jews in Ukraine. We have to have good relations with everyone. We cannot say we are with one, therefore we are against the other. Lavrov, I think Lavrov's daughter lives in Israel. I don't know if you knew that. I don't know. Listen, there's so much behind the scenes stuff that's going on. There's a lot of lip service. And I don't think the Russians are stupid. I think the Russians know that Iran has no economy, except for 80% of the economy is oil. If Israel destroys the oil facilities in the Persian Gulf, Iran is broke, completely broke. It's the end. There will be a revolution. And of course, there will be some generals and some leaders who will lead the revolution. And these crazy ayatollahs will be kicked out. The Iranian people are yelling every day, why are we spending all our wealth? Iran's should have been a rich country. Why are we spending all our wealth on Gaza? Why are we spending all our wealth on Arabs? We hate the Arabs. Iranians hate the Arabs. Israel is very active with the Iranian opposition. We don't hate the Iranians. We love the Iranians. This whole business with Ayatollah Khamenei, this is an anomaly. I think the Russians know that. I think the Russians are not stupid. So the Russians say things, so they say things. I don't think that Russia will launch rockets at England or at anybody. Russia made a big mistake. You know, it's crazy. I don't know if I mentioned this last week. I called my sister a few weeks ago to wish her a happy birthday. She's a Democrat. And just as I'm a fanatic right-wing Republican, she's a fanatic left-wing Democrat. And I said to her, this Putin's crazy. Putin killed 500,000 Russian soldiers. Putin killed 500,000 of his own kids for a war which is failing. And he killed 300,000 Ukrainian boys and girls. A lot of girls died in the Ukrainian military fighting. 1 million people. What does my sister say to me? Yeah, Trump also killed 1 million Americans because he gave the ventilators to Russia, you know, because of the COVID. I mean, this is the kind of woman who votes Democrat. They're crazy. My sister, she's crazy. Anyway, so I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think that England will get attacked by Russia. And listen, it's only a question of time. Iran will be defeated. It's only a question of time. And all we have to do is take out the oil and gas. So what does Biden say? Don't. Because he wants to maintain stable oil prices throughout the world so the Chinese don't go broke. Chinese will go broke if Iran loses its oil and gas.
Yeah.
Don't forget, the Chinese are part of the picture also.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
So just tell me, Angela, have I said anything that offends you? Have I said anything that is wrong? I mean, do I make sense?
Yeah, you make perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not offended by you.
Yeah.
Not at all.
I'll have to think about something then. Enjoy thee. I come to Joyzy.
Yeah. Thank you, Avi.
My pleasure.
God bless. God bless.
I think we have room for maybe 1 or 2 more questions because I do have my Zoom in Odessa with God's Learning Channel. Going once, going twice. Glory.
Thank you, Avi. Appreciate it. Appreciate the
Love
time.
you guys.
Have a good day. Shalom, shalom.
Enjoy the debate this afternoon, this evening.
You too.
Yeah, I'll enjoy it tomorrow morning when I have my coffee.
Okay.
God bless everyone. Bye-bye.
Shalom,
God bless you.
shalom.
Bye.
Susan,
Thanks,
you were very
Avi.
quiet. Susan, you were
Bye.
very quiet this
I
time.
had to go dark because I'm busy.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's right.
moving around is very distracting when people do it, so I don't want to do it either.
I'm just picking on you, that's all. Okay, guys, see you next week.
All righty, God bless
Bye.
you. Love
Shalom.
Rachel.
God
Bye-bye.
bless everyone. Bye.